welcome Patricia Russo, Executive Director, Women's Campaign School at Yale University, to the table again. It was 3 years ago when we
I can't believe it.
Yes.
It's been too long.
We're much younger now. Yeah.
Yes.
But over 3 years, so much has changed.
So much. So good.
Administrations
it's all good.
have changed.
Yes.
Women have marched. I want to ask you, 24 years now with the Women Campaign School, what has changed?
Oh, it has been such a wild, big, fun roller coaster ride the last 2 years. It really started, Anne, right after the 2016 presidential results, when we started getting an inordinate number of phone calls and emails from women who didn't quite know what they wanted to do, but as a result of the presidential election results, knew that they wanted to do something. But it was really after that first global women's march in January of last year that our phones were literally ringing off the hook, and women were calling us, I marched, I'm mad, I want to run for office, call me back. And you know me, I started returning all of those phone calls and discovered that 1/3 of the women who were contacting us weren't even registered to vote.
So that's a huge problem.
Huge problem, huge challenge. And then the second third were registered to vote, but didn't vote in the presidential.
See, that's
because
a big problem.
because they couldn't decide who to vote for because the two candidates were so similar. So 2/3 of the women who contacted us initially after that first march are not ready to run. They're just not. They've got a great passion, newly discovered passion for politics, but really don't have any of the basics, the foundation, the skill set to launch an effective, successful political career.
The campaign school, as we've been talking, is 5 days of intensiveness.
Yes.
You talk about just the last part of a campaign where it gets really, really nasty. Let's call it what it is. Politics gets nasty. So you really put them through the mill. Some gals have said to you, I'm going to run, but they have no idea what it's like. Give me for instance, of what you put women through so that they are ready to run for public office.
We put them through, we give them, during our 5-day intensive, every skill that they would need to run an effective, successful campaign. So that runs the gamut from effective messaging, how to successfully deliver a speech, debate prep, how to hire staff, what is a successful get out the vote operation, social media, which is huge, now fundraising. Everyone's for campaign finance reform, Anne, but until that moment really happens, we spend almost a day on effective fundraising techniques.
You teach them the business.
Yes,
which it is around
because
politics.
It is a business. It's not a hobby. It's a very expensive, complicated business. It's not for the faint of heart, as you know. It can get really ugly, which is why many women in the past have shied away from it, quite frankly, because it can get so nasty. But we really do prepare women, our women, and as you know, our program is nonpartisan and issue neutral. So we are training everyone, Democrats, Republicans, unaffiliated, independent, Green Party, any woman who has is either running for public office for the first time or is currently serving and wants to get ready to that next level of serving. And then we also have the campaign management side, because when you look at the campaign manager landscape, you have Donna Brazile on the Democratic side and you have Kellyanne Conway on the Republican side, and then we're in free fall. So we just need more women everywhere.
So it's more than just a passion. If you want to see change in the world, you know, you need to be the change. And that's great, but you really need to figure out what's coming at you. This is in the Me Too time and Time's Up days that we're living in right now. Is this forcing people to get on the phone and just say, hey, I really want to do it, and put me through this intensive process, which is every summer? Are they thinking the way they need to think when they run for office?
Well, as I said, 2/3 of them that are new to politics are not ready to run. They're not even ready for our 5-day intensive, which is why late last year we raised money to start a whole new level of training called the Women's Campaign School at Yale, the Basics, which is a one-day intensive, especially for these women who are new, so that we can meet them at their level of passion and give them the foundation that they need in order to launch themselves, their political careers, on the local level.
Is there a weed out rate when they go to that one day?
Well,
like,
just
whoa,
by,
this is not for me,
look,
or this is for me.
Just talking to me for 20 minutes, they're either, wow, yeah, you know, I want to do this, or wow, what was I thinking? No, I'm going to write a check. I'm going to support candidates that I'm, you know, aligned with. But it's not. What was I thinking? This isn't something I'm really interested in. So, you know, that's why I think it's so important that women, everyone needs to be trained. Number one, because it's gotten so complicated. But in order to be successful and effective, in addition to training, they need mentorship. You know, because as you just said, it gets nasty, it gets ugly. And that's when women start feeling very isolated. They start feeling, wow, am I the only one that can't find my campaign manager? Am I the only one whose fundraiser is costing me more money than raising me more money? Women who come through our program, be it our one-day training now or our 5-day, find a sisterhood at our school. We have a very active alumni Facebook page where Democrats, Republicans just talk about challenges they're facing, and they're just so supportive of one another, which is so wonderful to see, because there's not a lot of bipartisan collaboration going on out there. So
the country's divided.
Exactly. So in addition to providing exemplary training, we're also creating a new culture, and I'm very excited about that as well.
How did you come to this job in the first place? I mean,
God, it's been so long, I can't remember.
I know, right? Was the passion inside of you politically when you were in college or as a kid?
You know, I was very active when I was in high school. My senior year of high school, I got very, very politically active on the local level, living in New Jersey. And, you know, you may recall the last time I was here, I talked about how I wanted to be a nun, and that didn't work out once puberty hit. And then I wanted to be a nurse, but then hated the sight of blood and knew that wasn't going to work out. And so suddenly I, you know, acquired this, you know, passion for politics. And I got very active in the women's movement, again, my senior year in high school. And that's when I decided that I wanted to go to school in Washington, D.C., and I wanted to major in political science. And my parents were so supportive and took a leap of faith with me, because they had no idea what that meant and how I was ever going to support myself. And so that's really what got me going. And then when I was at George Washington University, the requirement of a political science degree at that time was to work for a member of Congress. And of course, the only one I wanted to work for and had the opportunity to work for was the late, great Bella Abzug. So she was really the one that still inspires me to this day to do one more thing to get more women in the pipeline.
Are there any members of Congress that are like Bella?
Rosa. Our own Rosa.
Rosa.
Look no further than New Haven, Connecticut.
And she's pretty powerful these days.
She is a rock star.
Yeah,
she is a rock star. She's phenomenal, and I'm just so grateful that she's there. She's an enormous supporter of the school. She comes to the school every June to speak and to just kind of rev up our students as only Rosa can.
You spent a lot of time in Washington. You went to school there. Mm-hmm. As a woman going into Congress, what is it like in a pretty much male-dominated world?
Well, Elizabeth Esty, who is also she's one of our rock star graduates. Elizabeth came to our school together with her daughter, Sarah. Elizabeth was running, and her daughter was going to be her campaign manager. That's always the sweet spot. If we can have students come with whomever's going to run their campaign, that's always the best, because they're receiving the training through a very different lens, right? Very different perspectives. That's the best. And so Sarah, you know, so Elizabeth ran and won, and Sarah, I guess, loved Yale Law School so much that she went back and is now a graduate of Yale Law School, as is her mom. But Elizabeth talks about how helpful our training was the minute she stepped foot in Congress, because her first year was right during the time Newtown happened. And she's taking the lead right now, as you probably know, in the whole area of gun control. And so she said that, I hit the ground running and I felt so prepared and so confident. And it didn't matter that she had just arrived. She felt confident in the skills that she had learned at our school to take on whatever she needed to take on. And she is one of our most effective members of Congress as a result.
Sometimes women can be their own worst enemies. Do you think women in Congress are the sisterhood that they need to be to keep growing new members coming in?
Well, I know that they are in a partisan way. They are. I know that Democratic female members of Congress are very supportive of each other, and Republican female members of Congress are very supportive of each other. What we're not seeing is any of that connection, at least in the House. Whereas, gosh, I remember 20 years ago, Rosa and former Congresswoman Nancy Johnson were co-chair of the Reproductive Rights Caucus. You don't see that in the House. You do see it among the women in the United States Senate. And that's really thanks to former Senator Barbara Mikulski. Barbara Mikulski, former dean of the women senators, would have a dinner every month just for women senators, Democrats and Republicans, to kind of talk about what can we move forward and support together as a team, as a coalition. And that continues in spite of her retirement. I think that there's more power in numbers. I think that when women traditionally we're much more collaborative in our leadership style. We're much more able to check our ego at the door for the greater good, because oftentimes we go into running for office, we decide to run for very different reasons than men.
Which are?
We want to save the world. We want to make the world a better place. Traditionally, women have entered politics because something had been happening in their community that they wanted to have an impact, a positive impact with. Maura Lyons is a perfect example of that. There was some kind of issue in the Chapin section of Stanford, and she had never thought about running for office. She was just a community activist, which she will tell you with a big mouth, and she started going to cocktail parties talking about this problem, and suddenly she's got 200 people showing up on a Saturday morning at a diner, and there she is, at the head, front of the diner talking about this issue. And then once it was resolved successfully, people turned to her and said, "Maura, you should run for state rep." And she said, "Yeah, I should run for state rep." And that's how it started. And as you know, she has been our first female Speaker of the House, our first one, hopefully not our last.
You never...
No interest in running.
Which just cracks me up, because I think you would have a command in a room, and I know that you do, but no interest. You just want to train politicians.
I love to make rock stars. I love to make, really successful women candidates. I love to be on the back side, the quieter side, believe it or not. I always say that I'm effective because I stay in my lane, and I know what I love, and I do that. And there's so many women that, quite frankly, need that mentoring, need that help, and are so grateful for it, that it just fills my heart with joy to be able to do that work. I'd have to be nice to people I don't like. I'd have to work on issues I don't care about to run for office, and that's just not my sweet spot.
That's not your thing. What qualities do you need to run for office as a female?
You have to have a thick skin. Nothing is personal. You just can't take anything personally. You have to have a passion for politics, and understand and appreciate that politics is the art of the possible. When people tell me, "Oh, it's so great you do what you do," I'm not political. If you're not political, everything in life is political, Ann. If you're not political, then I feel like you're missing out on life, because it's so juicy and fun and messy and hard, but it's so rewarding. So you have to have a tough skin. You have to know your value. You have to know that you have the ability to make things so much better in your community and your state, your world. And that's something, again, that I think we help instill in our women. I'll say to our students on Monday that by Wednesday they're not going to recognize themselves, because just by virtue of being in it with us, being, you know, with their other students who are so exceptional and coming from all walks of life, extraordinary faculty. You know, our faculty, they come from both sides of the aisle, have worked on presidential races, congressional races. You know, just that level of training, you just start feeling differently about yourself. You start feeling, yeah, I want to do this, I can do it, and by Friday, you will do it.
Who developed the curriculum? Were you in on that, or is it just a consensus?
It's something that it has evolved. You know, every year we tweak it. We have extraordinary faculty, and we have extraordinary board members who also serve on our faculty. We have one star in particular, Karen Patel, who is a political consultant in D.C., who really, really takes it apart and puts, I call it our Jenga puzzle, you know, just kind of takes it apart, see what's working, see what's not, always constantly, you know, making sure that we're cutting edge, that we're, you know, teaching and, you know, training to what they really will need in order to be effective once we send them back out into the world.
Are you confident we're going to get better at this?
We are getting better at it already. I believe that women are going to be the story of the 2018 midterms. That's how confident I feel.
And on that, we should say thank you, because that's great.
It is great.
Patty Russo,
it's
thank
great.
you so much.
My
Executive
pleasure.
Director, Women's Campaign School at Yale. Thank you.
You.
Spend all night kissing, and if one was right here, then who else is missing? Got a little sidetracked, if I'm so wishing to find the keys to the door, but it's also a metaphor. Need to keep locked in the grocery store, but mine just to save time. I'll skip right ahead to the last ride.